Open up! Open up! Your daughter fell in the creek!
All right, welcome back, everybody, to Rock Hard Caucus. This is our 177th episode. It is currently December... Well, I shouldn't tell them that because I'm going to release it in a few days. What if I just bleep the date?
I don't think anyone really cares if it's if we're recording it days before it comes out or whatever.
Yeah,
5
it's
days.
not exactly time sensitive. But I am sorry that I have to start this episode on a somber note for Evan and I especially. We do have a guest, but I'll get to that in a moment. Something important happened recently. Or, well, it wasn't actually recent, but we just found out about it.
Yeah.
Well, let me just read this. Joseph Dobrian of Iowa City, son of Walter Dobrian and Louise Lindquist Dobrian, passed away peacefully in his home due to natural causes at the age of 68 on November 22nd, 2024. And I can hear you out there listening to this. I heard your audible gasps as I finished that sentence.
I audibly gasped when I found this news, and I was on a voice chat at the time. So.
Was anyone recording? Do you have a recording of that gasp?
I don't know if it was captured on audio, but it was shocking news nonetheless.
Yes. For anyone who maybe does not know, Joseph Dobrian has been a fixture on this podcast since pretty much day one. I went back in our records and I read an opinion column that Joseph Dobrian wrote on our third episode, which would have been, I think, September of 2019. So this guy's been a part of I said Rogues Gallery earlier. He's been part of our Rogues Gallery since the beginning. And in fact, we brought him up comparing his appearance to Paul Dahl just like
right
2 episodes ago, not knowing as we were talking about him that he had passed away, which is crazy. It's crazy that he would come to mind for you, Evan.
Well, yeah, the Paul Dahl guy, like I said, he's like the liberal version of Joseph Dobrian, I think. So It was an easy comparison to make.
Yeah. And for anybody who has not listened to the stuff that we put out on Patreon, I have produced 48 hours of content about Joseph Dobrian's books. So obviously this guy, this weird small town conservative crank has been very important to us for a number of years. I've spent a lot of time making fun of him and his work, and it's a very, very odd feeling to learn that he is not going to be making any more weird books for me to read.
True. But his words will live on forever. That's what I posted. I mean, I was imagining like he would become like super popular after death. Like he was like Edgar Allan Poe, just like grinding away for years in obscurity. And then like, however decade or two after his death is now renowned as like one of the greatest authors of all time. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, he, for his books that I've read so far, he really hits on the like big conservative themes. You'd think that these things would take off in that sort of sphere of the culture, like keeping racist mascots for football teams and pedophilia.
Yeah.
Basically is what that second novel is about. There's a very sad part of this obituary that I just want to read, although this part's fine. Joseph is fondly remembered by his family and friends as a lifelong lover of animals. Memorial donations may be made to the Iowa City Animal Care and Adoption Center, and I plan to send them a donation in memory of Joseph soon. But then the last part, in accordance with Joseph's stated wishes, there will be no public memorial service. And that's, well, I don't know. I find that sad. Is that normal?
I mean, depends on the person. But yeah, I mean, some people don't want it, but I don't know. I think it makes sense for Joe. He probably, well, I don't know. He probably did want it, actually.
Well, he liked attention.
He liked attention.
But yeah, look, I kept a distance from the guy. I wanted to critique his work and not really get into altercations with him. So it's not like I have a keen insight really on his personal life, but he did seem like a lonely person.
Yeah, for sure.
And it seemed like he actively pushed people away with his the way he expressed his awful opinions. Hang on a second.
Yeah.
Shut the fuck up.
Yeah, I think Joe kind of cherished being an asshole. He kind of leaned into it. He enjoyed it. He liked to go to city council meetings and cause problems and be repulsive kind of. So
yeah. I'll end this segment with an example of him being repulsive. So, in addition to his 5 novels, a collection of short fiction, 2 volumes of essays, a book on writing skills, and 1 translation, Joseph Jobrian also authored this incredible tweet from October 21st of 2016. Untamed and untrimmed. The bush itself is an erogenous zone, if you know how to work it. Abhor the baldy. That's what he'll be remembered for most, I think, is his love of pubic hair.
I mean, he did post that on a public Twitter account, so I can't get too mad at Justin for reading it. But I mean, he wasn't a great guy, but he didn't have any power. He was just a small town crank trying to. Yeah. I mean, he had a strong work ethic. He really wanted to be known and wanted to have his writing out there. So I don't know.
Yeah, he's a
sad day.
Compelling local character. I gotta get rid of this cat. She's screaming at me.
I couldn't tell if it was coming from. It could very well be coming from on the other side of my door.
Yeah. Yeah, my door's closed, so my cat can't get in here. But she would probably be screaming very loudly if she was here.
Yeah.
You feed them dinner, and then 5 minutes later, they're like, "Where's dinner?" It's like,
what the hell?
If I give you a second dinner, you'll immediately throw it up. Like, what is this? But much like Joseph Jobrian, I love my cats, and they are the world to me. All right, let's get into the episode. Let's move on past this mourning period. I'm sure that we'll have more to say about Joe in the future because he left behind a massive body of work that we're going to have to continue.
We got to continue
analyzing.
the Dobrian Book Club.
Yeah.
I mean, it's important now. It's his legacy, and we're going to take it more seriously, I think, going forward. Like I said, because it's his legacy.
Yeah. All right, moving on. Time to introduce our guest. I would like to introduce you all to my friend Will Roberts. Will is a documentary filmmaker and unfortunately a fellow podcaster. Will, welcome to the show.
What's up, guys? It's me, the ghost of Joseph Dobrian, here to haunt the podcast forever. Happy to talk about today's topic, pubes.
Yeah, so it sounds like you are a big fan of as much hair as possible.
Oh yeah. It's what my next book is about. I'm excited that there's still going to be opportunity for me to keep writing all these books for time immemorium.
Will, sorry to step on the bit already, but I did want to.
It's okay. I can keep this going forever.
I wanted to thank you for finally returning the favor. I appeared on your Sopranos review podcast on October 9th of 2020.
Oh
and
my
now,
gosh.
About 4 years later, you're finally coming on my podcast. So finally we're,
Finally we're even.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The scales have balanced.
Yeah, that was a really funny episode because we were just watching it. We hadn't seen it before, and then you got assigned the episode. There was just it was a really fun run, and that was the episode where Tony Soprano says like a bunch of slurs like right off the bat, and we had to unfortunately cancel communism's favorite hero, Tony Soprano, on the podcast.
Yep.
And then our schedules dissolved such that the podcast soon ended very quickly afterwards.
Yeah, I mean, once you find out that guy has some bad opinions, it's really hard to keep watching the show.
What happened to our woke king?
Yeah.
I thought therapy was going to change him, but...
Will, the reason that we are now taking the opportunity to have you on the podcast is because you recently released a documentary called Out of Office, and this is available at Means TV. And it's about a strike a labor strike that you were a part of. So tell me, like, how did this happen? Like, did you make this happen for content? Like, you wanted to make a documentary, and so you pushed your coworkers to strike?
Yeah, I was really bored, and I wanted to film something, so I got 450 of my closest friends to go on strike. Yeah, so I worked as a multimedia specialist was the job title for this financial services company in Madison, Wisconsin. Called True Stage. You probably haven't heard of it. It's not really like a household name, but they are a pretty big financial services business that does a lot of insuring for credit unions. So if you do your banking with a credit union, for example, you almost certainly have a product from this company one way or another.
I feel like they may have been more well known under their previous name.
Yes.
I feel like I've seen that around.
Yeah.
CUNA Mutual Group.
Yep. They rebranded in the middle of our negotiation, which was makes telling the story a little bit confusing because like anybody who ever knew the company knew it as one thing and then they changed it, which I mean, I think they're part of the reason that they changed their name was trying to, get away with some of the baggage, but we tried to make sure that we attached the history to their new name as well.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, they're headquartered in Madison, Wisconsin, although they have employees all over the country. And while I was in a union there, OPEIU, Local 39, which stands for the Office and Professional Employees International Union, which is a pretty general union. Actually, I found out there's airline pilots in OPEIU and all sorts of different jobs can be OPEIU.
Yeah, office and professional employees seems like a pretty broad umbrella.
Yeah. And yeah, we ended up, long story short, we ended up going on strike over our contract, but it was a multiple year battle. And in the course of events, our star player, Joe, he was our chief steward. He got unfairly fired, retaliated against for his union organizing activity, and the documentary goes into all of this. But yeah, I guess I'm not really sure where to stop, rather than just summarize the whole the whole thing.
Well, yeah, ideally people will want to watch it based on this conversation we have, so we shouldn't just walk them through all of it, right?
I guess
probably
not.
Shouldn't
yeah,
tell them everything.
Yeah. And here's the twist. It was actually good that the company was doing this to us. No, I guess so. My larger angle, maybe I would say, is just that okay, so yeah, here's this weird company in Wisconsin. Who cares about what's going on there? I did my best with it, and hopefully this comes through, but in the documentary, to make this a story that you don't have to know who the company is to care about this, or know who any of us are to care about it. It's a rare W for organized labor. I think that we can be looking around for some of those lately, and sometimes they're harder to find. But this was a kind of innocuous group, an unassuming group of dorks is kind of how we would describe ourselves, or a bunch of I guess I'm not from Wisconsin, but I was in Wisconsin, and a bunch of Midwesterners who are very polite and don't like to cause too much of a fuss, but we ended up doing it for real.
Yeah, I mean, if you're not from around this area, you may not know that the rivalry between Iowans and Wisconsins is bitter. We hate each other. So the fact that an Iowan like Will was up there and was part of the team, that is remarkable that they accepted him as one of their own.
I did see that. Was that going around the most hated teams?
Yeah.
In the different states?
I saw that too, and it said Iowa's most hated rival sports team is Wisconsin, which I
really?
do not agree with.
I know, yeah, that surprised me. I didn't. They don't think of us at all. There's that the Madman scene.
Well, I mean, they got rid of the rivalry game for a while, where like we'd only play like the football game like every like 3 or 4 years maybe, and I think they re-added it. I don't know. I don't really follow that stuff much anymore, but
yeah, this is like college football you're talking about.
Yeah.
But
Who
I think
would
it
rank
also
above
included
Wisconsin,
pro
then?
sports as well.
Oh,
Like
okay.
it was just overall most hated. Like
Yeah,
Oh wow.
yeah,
that's weird. I think it'd be
Yeah, if you-
Nebraska.
I would say so. As well.
Yeah. That's a bigger rivalry, right? But if it's like every sports team like in the world of every sport, I mean, I'm going to throw it to, let's say, this is how long it takes me to think of like one sports team.
Big sports guy here.
The fucking Baltimore Ravens. That's Iowa's most hated team of anything.
Good one.
Me, I hate Mercedes F1 team for some reason.
Oh yeah.
Okay, so something that I wanted to talk to you about, Will. The way that this all kind of started is that the union contract expired in 2022. And so prior to this was like a fairly, like a not super active union. Like all these people worked under a union contract, but it was not like a major part of their lives. They weren't exactly militant labor activists. But then the contract expired in 2022, and it seemed like the company like had no interest in actually like negotiating a new contract, and they just kind of let it sit there.
Yeah, that's 100% correct. The union had been fairly dormant for years. I joined the company at the very end of 2019, just a couple months before the whole company went, remote for during when COVID hit in March, and then like that was like most of the company too. By the way, it was like 90%. More than 90% of the company ended up going remote, and then one of our big things in our contract was protections for remote work. And man, we really glad we stuck it out for that, because that ended the contract fight went on for so long that the whole return to office thing was happening too later on. And good thing we already had tentatively agreed that part. But anyway, yeah, we were a pretty dormant union ahead of time, and then when the contract expired, our bargaining team, I was not on it at the time. I eventually, like, my whole journey was that I kind of went from this, disinterested worker there that like, hey, I didn't even realize this role had a union, and I am philosophically pro-union, but then I found out that I was actually in one, and then I started participating a little bit more, and then like suddenly I became a contract action team leader, a member of the bargaining team, blah blah blah, over the course of these years. But at the time, when I started, I had no idea what was going on. And,
is Wisconsin still a right to work state? I know that was a big Scott Walker thing.
Yeah.
Okay. So that makes sense that you maybe didn't actually know that the union was representing you when you started there. Yeah.
I mean, it wasn't until like, it was like a couple days into it. Like I had an orientation with a steward, but it wasn't like when I was applying, I knew it was going to be a union role.
Yeah, it's pretty uncommon for like a financial services company. I got to say, I work in financial services. Sorry to disappoint anyone. Definitely do not have a union. It would be nice. And I guess when did they get union representation to begin with?
So it has been a union shop. Well, that's misleading, because there's 450 union members, and then there's like 1,500 non-union members.
Oh, okay.
So it's not a closed shop, but
right. When it can't be because of the right to work laws. Yeah.
It was unionized like 50 years ago. Something like a really long time. So that's kind of why it can kind of stick around, and that's kind of also why, like, maybe the people just kind of got complacent with it, who people have been around for a long time. And then it seemed like that the company's kind of main mission with this contract negotiation was to just sort of wipe us off the map entirely. Like they just kind of wanted to just kill the union, or at least, just like marginalize it to such an extent that like, they can get rid of us altogether. And this is they've been kind of doing that subtly over the decades, like especially around the year 2000, they started this like big outsourcing campaign, slowly undermining this, the strength of our union just by its sheer numbers. And like the contract says something like, if you're gonna lay off a group of people, it can't be more than like 40 people, right? And then you got to like talk to the union about it. That's something that you got to bargain over. And so they were just, be laying off 39 people at a time, over the years, and to the point where we lost 1,200 jobs in those 20 years. There's a piece in the documentary that talks about like the 1,200 jobs that we lost. And so, job security was a big deal for us. And they really turned up the heat in this negotiation. I've actually been rewatching Andor this last couple weeks, and I just got to the episode where the Empire is talking about. Feel free to cut this, Justin.
No, we're keeping this in for sure. Star Wars is always a priority.
Zero chance he's cutting it.
You saw my eyes light up.
Okay, like the Empire, the Imperial officers are just talking about. About like how they're gonna like come down hard on the galaxy, come down hard on the rebellion to try to quash it. And like Luthen is in there. He's Stellan Skarsgård's saying like like the tighter they clench their fists, the more people will rise up against it. And I think that was kind of the case for us. That like the not to give them unsolicited advice or other companies unsolicited advice, but like I think you can just kind of do a slow bleed, slow erosion, maybe a little bit easier. Right. And they just kind of didn't anticipate that we'd actually stand up and fight for ourselves this time. And they just kind of took things a little bit too far, especially with the firing of our chief steward. That really got people set off.
Yeah. I mean, these are sort of like the case studies that provide support for the theories of accelerationism. Like the worse you treat people, the more likely they are to actually revolt.
Yeah, we've seen it a little bit in the last week or so too. Like you can only push people so far, a little bit. Like to some extent. I'm not saying that's like this. I'm not saying that's the solution. This isn't a video podcast, is it?
It's not. So no one can see you winking. Yeah, it's.
But I'm not advocating for just like worse conditions and therefore something will spring out of anywhere. There's a point that my friend Andy makes in the middle in this documentary, and we became friends over the course of all of this, and we've started a podcast talking about labor and politics and stuff. But something that he pointed out that I think is really important to remember is that the organization was already in place, like already in movement, in motion. And so like when one of those kind of inciting events happened, there was a structure in place to be activated. It, like you can be kind of a discombobulated, unorganized mess and something bad happens and you can all be like, shoot, that sucks. But unless you have anywhere to like direct your energy, and some sort of like, path forward, some sort of plan, then that kind of gets, that evaporates pretty quickly. And luckily for us, we had already been organizing, well in advance of that happening. And that was just kind of like, I don't know, the straw that broke the camel's back.
Yeah, absolutely. Something that you touched on a while ago. How many remote workers did you say worked?
There were about 100 of us, or there were. I left in June, and they actually laid off my whole team in November. But there were 100 of us.
So I was thinking about this, like as I was watching the documentary. Like I would think that it would be probably more difficult to organize with a lot of remote workers, but on the other hand, maybe there are some aspects of it that are easier. Like if you're on your own computer and just like DMing each other.
Yeah.
You're not like under the constant watchful eye of the boss.
Yeah, so yeah, the two parts for organizing, I actually do think it helped a lot. For one, like right when we went all remote, we started having weekly town hall meetings over Microsoft Teams, just like our organization's communication tool at the time. And there actually was like every week a town hall meeting at like in the cafeteria in the office, but no one really went to it. but once it was remote, people started going to this, and
I see.
so like one of those just like weird like social things where like it's easier to go to a meeting over lunch when it's remote, or I don't know, you're not like already set in your routine for you always sit at this table with your buddies or something. I'm not sure what the deal was with that, but like,
well, obviously the routines had already been disrupted. You know, like you all went from in office to remote, and so you're already in the place where that meeting is going to happen. You just got to click a button. So that makes sense.
And so organizing remotely or virtually was like I think we had a lot of advantages doing it that way, because people are expecting things to be receiving things remotely too. And then when it came time to actually go out on the picket line and strike, we weren't the first union to have a remote picket line, but there sure weren't a bunch of examples for us to look at for how to pull it off successfully up until that point. We went on strike in May 2023, at the very end of May, and we also had the hybrid situation going on, because there were still a bunch of people who, even though they worked remotely, they still lived in Madison, Wisconsin, and we had this whole, like if you live within 30 minutes of the office, or actually I think it was if you live within an hour of the office, you're going to be there physically on the picket line. If you live outside of that radius, you will join like an all-day Zoom where you're being, you just kind of manage yourself.
Hold a sign in your house, in your office, in front of the webcam.
we did things like that. We had
you have a Twitch stream.
We did have a Twitch stream.
Heck yes.
My friend Justin ran a Twitch stream where he was playing. Oh, what was that? Is a Hyperspace Outlaw? Is something like that along those
Hypnospace Outlaw.
Like it's very, like kind of like work labor related game, but he was streaming that. I lived in Cedar Rapids, but I still drove up and like stayed with my aunt and uncle overnight up that week so I could actually film all of this. But my job was kind of a weird one, since I was I was a remote strike captain at the same time. And so I spent a lot of time zooming in from my phone and being sort of like the bridge between the two picket lines. Streaming. I streamed out on YouTube a lot of what was going on. And I think even though there wasn't like a bunch of stuff necessarily happening, it's like we're just kind of out there making noise and trying to be disruptive. That's kind of all there is. It was still really nice for the remote folks to sort of have that connection to like, okay, there's a real life thing happening, because otherwise it is just you like in your home office. I'm just not working, and I have to trust that 400 other people are also not working.
Like somehow I'm helping.
Yeah. Like it can be kind of like a weird isolating thing, and I think if you're trying to organize something like that, you should recognize that it can be it's just like a weird different environment with a lot of different like human social things going on that go with it.
Did you consider maybe like hosting a picket like in Second Life or something like that? It was very successful for the 2008 presidential campaign of Newt Gingrich, so I just thought that you could maybe learn from that.
Oh yeah, because it worked for President Gingrich. I don't think that came up. I think
the metaverse. You get the metaverse or anything?
We blew all of our union dues on real estate in the metaverse.
That actually would be, I think, pretty cool, because you could like technically like wave a picket sign in VR, right? You have a little controller with the motion controls and stuff.
Did they add legs yet? Can you actually march a picket line if you don't have legs?
Oh, that's a good question.
That's a good point.
Yeah. Speaking of your commute from Cedar Rapids to Madison, when you went to film stuff on the picket line, there was a shot in the documentary, like as you were driving across a bridge. How did you film that? Were you like driving with your knees and holding a camera up?
No, I love it. This is the best interview I could possibly give about this, because yes, that is exactly that bridge, and I'm so glad you noticed that. I had this whole plan for the documentary that I had like 90% of it together. This is the answer you definitely weren't expecting. But I had this whole plan for the documentary. I had like 90% done. I just couldn't figure out how to start it. And I shot like a bunch of different openings for it, and ended up liking what I landed on. But for a while, actually, this ties back to the Sopranos thing. For a while, I had just dropped like a YouTube rip of the Sopranos title sequence into the documentary because it like just worked there. I just kind of like wanted, and I'm like, I'll go film that later, but I'm gonna do that. And it'll just right now it'll just say like Tony Sirico like as part of my documentary
this morning.
Yeah, exactly. And like I promise you it worked. I like believe me on that. And then you know, I found another way into it that didn't work, but I did film my own version of it, of just sort of like I bought a 360 camera and sat it in my passenger seat and turned it on occasionally while I was driving, and then I was like trying to pan. I wanted to see like, you know, like Madison 80 miles as it, you know, went past the thing, because it's just me. I can't be like operating a camera and the vehicle at highway speeds. But then that was hardly visible, and the only shot that like turned out to work very well is like when there's a really large landmark like surrounding the car because of how wide the camera lens is, and so the bridge made it into the documentary.
Nice. Yeah, I love the idea of recreating the Sopranos opening sequence of like his drive to Newark or whatever, but it's like driving to Madison, Wisconsin.
Yeah, I mean, I kind of like was thinking about like, okay, who can I hire to make like a sound alike of the theme song, and
me.
Well, then maybe we'll release the director's cut, or we do that, because I wanted it to be just like, hay bales. There's this like, I don't know. I assume it's some like hog butchering thing that I pass all the way, but it's called hog slat, and it's like the most disgusting word that I've ever like seen on a sign. But I always laugh when I pass
slat.
it. Yeah, it's just. It's a nasty thing, but yeah, that's what I wanted to be the title sequence for a while.
All right. I guess like overall, what I found, I told you this privately. I'll reveal this to the listeners. I did cry a little bit watching this, because sort of like the big theme that comes out of this is how much this experience of like coming together and fighting for not just your own working conditions and compensation, but like everyone else's as well, as a collective effort, how much that like awakened something within these people who maybe felt like they were just sort of like timid, like keep your head down, just get your job done type people. It like brought out an inner strength within them. And it's like that whole sequence, like near the end of the documentary, is like really inspiring.
I got choked up too, and it definitely reminded me of like my own job and my place in it, and the power that you do have, you know, to change things.
I'm really happy that it had that effect on you guys. That's really heartening to hear, because that has definitely been my like kind of number one takeaway from all of this. Like, I think like getting involved in this, the contract negotiation kind of really did change how I see the world. And maybe that's not the right way of saying it, because like I was a socialist before, and I'm still a socialist, or, you know, however you like, whatever label is. Now, I was leftist before, I'm still leftist now. But like, it kind of, there's a lot to like despair about at like a national level, or like, you look around local level, like there's just, we're replete with things to despair about, I suppose. Unfortunate times that we live in. But this, like, I don't know about you guys, but like I've wanted to fight every boss that I've ever had, just kind of because, and also just because like this deal that we get is raw, right? Like, it kind of sucks that we have to work, and it kind of sucks that we have to work this hard, and it kind of sucks that we have to work so we can get health insurance and blah blah blah. But like, this was actually like a tangible way of like affecting our living conditions. And it like we just pushed the boulder a little bit. Like actually, we were able to put our hands on the wheel and actually do something. Felt a lot different than like, I don't know, filling in a little circle on a piece of paper once every 4 years or something. But like we actually, made it happen. And it kind of, it calmed me down a lot. Like, weirdly enough, but like, you know what? Like things can be different. Things can be otherwise than what they are. Like, I think I know that intellectually, just like, you know, there's the only reason that the way things are is because we let, you know, some people make it this way, but like,
right. Everything, all this shit we experience is the result of human beings making decisions.
Yep. Exactly.
And we're human beings also.
Exactly. And, you know, like our collective power has been like under attack for, you know, for decades as workers and all of that too. But like you can still pull out a W. Like it's still possible. Yeah. And there's, I guess, like for your listenership, I would maybe also like to say that there is something that I learned that's not in the documentary, because I kind of made this for like a general audience, that like, you know, you can send to your mom or your grandma and they'll be into it too. But there's the strategic importance and power of just a few well-placed socialists. Like in a movement like this, like it can just be like a couple of people who are like real about it, you know, like behind the scenes, they're like, yeah, like whatever. We explicitly believe that like the working class and the ruling class are at odds with each other, and like they know the score. And then, you know, you just frame things in a way that everybody can get behind. Everyone hates their job for one reason or another, and you can kind of just make it happen in that way. And I don't count myself as one of those people, for the record, either. Like
You're
I was
part
somebody
of the
who
vanguard.
No, I wasn't. Yeah, like, I'm a tier 1 operator over here. Like, no, that was like over time. It was like I realized like there were just a few people who, you know, were really serious about it, and like got not dummies like me, just like normal people, whatever, who are like checked in. They're just trying to survive. Like we're just trying to go to work.
Lazy, stupid schmucks like you.
Yeah,
ugly, stinky guys like me. And you know what? You need ugly, stupid guys like me. That's the overall message.
I mean, we're all kind of like dumb and like lazy to some degree, right? Like, obviously, nothing real is going to happen unless we activate the dumb and lazy among us.
100%.
Self-included.
For sure. Yeah, I really like the profile on Joe, you know, the steward. He was like, I think it was a good point that he was like a competent and well-respected person regardless of any political leanings, and that kind of helped him to be more effective in that role.
Yeah.
And that made his firing like a more obviously like retaliation, which pissed off everyone else. Yeah,
100%. That was something that, Andy says it in the documentary, but when you set out to become, you know, a union activist or a labor activist, you know, you got to cover your bases to a certain degree. Like you're sort of held to a particular standard. He's just aware of his station, and he's like, I'm gonna do a really good job, and I'm gonna be very respectful, and so like give them no excuses, right? And then like they went fishing for one, and that activated a lot of us. I think for a lot of us, we have a lot of like middle-aged folks in our union, and I think for a lot of them, like Joe was kind of represented almost like like their nice son or like their son's friend or something like that. And like, look at him. He doesn't deserve this.
Right. Yeah. He does seem like a nice son's friend. That's kind of the vibe that he gives off. Yeah.
He really, I asked him at some point during all this, like he was so good at I don't want this to come across as like you have to have some sort of like a supernaturally charismatic leader or something like that to pull something off like this. And you know, part of the thing that makes Joe so special is that there's nothing special about him. He's just kind of a nice guy. You know, like and it could be any of us who can step into that role. But he was doing such a good. He did so well with the position that he was in that at some point I asked him like, are you a plant? Like, did like like
are you salting?
Or like did the internet? Yeah, did the international like send you here to do this? And he's like, no, I mean, like, I'm, I believe these things, and so I'm going to do this at any, place that I'm at. But he is I really admire Joe. He's somebody that I will always look up to, and he's no longer with the company. He had to leave for. He remained our chief steward even after he was fired, and then eventually he stepped down because like there's only so much you can give to a fight that isn't yours anymore.
Sure. Yeah. Can't blame him. Well, I don't want to give away the big twist, so we should just encourage people to go watch it. It's a half-hour thing.
I became the CEO.
Whoops. Hell yeah.
Yeah.
Good job, man.
CEO of True Stage. But yeah, go to Means TV, check it out. Out of Office. I think people will really enjoy it. And
I had one other question. How do you feel about the term email jobs and the general disparagement of office workers?
That's a great question. It's 100% right. Like, it should be disparaged, I think. Like, it's so we went to like this it's part of like the I don't know how much to get into it, but Joe Biden came to Madison at one point for like a labor thing and like got all like, got all the unions in the area to show up for him as part of the big rug pull, I suppose, or however you want to be thinking about it.
Do you remember when this was?
If I was early 2023.
Okay. So while you were negotiating this.
Yeah, mid negotiations. Yeah. While we were there, some of the stewards were introducing themselves to the other labor workers in the area, and said, hey, we're from OPEIU, the Office and Professional Employees Union, and they said, oh, you're the soft hands union, because there's like the construction, building trades, and other things that were there, and I think we kind of owned it, the subtitle of the documentary is How Soft Hands Struck a Hard Bargain. That's how Andy made up this like tiger graphic that looks really badass, but it says like soft hands, hard bargains on it that we used. We just kind of owned it. Like, yeah, we're not out in the sun. We're not digging ditches. We're not put in a lot of like physical danger. We're still workers. We're still working for a living, right, just like anybody else is. And we don't need to, I don't think there should be doing all this like dick measuring about like who's got the hardest job is not really like the most useful, I think, use of time and energy. Like, I think that we can have a broader class consciousness of like, we're all workers, that's better. I do think,
I mean, as long as, look, the working class should have each other's back regardless of like what trade you're in. Like the email job guy, as long as he has the construction workers back and vice versa, that's good. That's a positive. That's what we should be striving for, is working class solidarity, right?
Yeah, absolutely. As long as we live in a society where like we have to be like working, there's like workers and capitalists and all of these things, like, yeah, there's going to be a bunch of like shitty jobs that like are kind of fake or stupid along the way. But like the people who work them, like, unless you're working for like Raytheon or something, like there's like limits to it or whatever. But like, you're, for the most part, like there's just like human beings that, their working conditions matter too.
Yeah. And a lot of jobs office jobs can be very difficult, can be very stressful. Oh, yeah. You're subject to the same demands from management that you would be in any other industry. And as you mentioned in the documentary, a lot of those jobs don't pay very well. And I know a lot of companies around here in particular stress like, you can work from home. Like they use a lot of the soft hands benefits of like the work as a reason to like pay you less and to put more on your plate too.
Absolutely. That's a great point. If I had like, I don't know, maybe for a future project or something, I think there's a really interesting trick at some point in the 20th century that was pulled on workers to sort of there's almost a like a sense that because you work in an office or you have, an email job or something, that you are kind of part of the ruling class. Like,
yeah,
you're closer to that. Like, maybe is it part of like why we all sort of think that we're temporarily embarrassed millionaires, and like we're so much closer to the haves and the have-nots, when like obviously it's the other way around.
Right. I mean, for me, like baristas are like closer to the ruling class than like an entrepreneur who's like more working class.
Is this is this whatever that tweet was about Elon Musk being like he's actually the working class billionaire?
I think that's what I got that from. It was just in my brain. I don't remember.
Yeah, like this is it's more of like a cultural thing than like
yeah,
for sure,
a class thing.
I mean, I think that's what you're speaking to. Like something happened in the 20th century to like trick everyone into thinking stupid backward shit like that.
Yeah, but we're not like we're never going to be a billionaire. We are all at some point going to be, in a place of need, in a time of need, in a state of being disabled or anything like that. Like, so is it sick or infirm? Like, we should have people's backs along the way, so that. I don't know. Yeah, we just gotta whatever. I'm preaching to the choir here because of who listens to you guys. But this was really quite the experience for me, I think. And now I'm on this like wild crusade to have all of the office dorks get unionized.
Yeah. I think that's a noble
I would
pursuit.
love that, but I'm ready for when it happens. I'm not sure if I'm the one to lead that, but I would love to see that happen in my workplace. But that's an uphill battle for sure.
Yeah,
there are a lot of uphill battles.
There are a lot of uphill battles, and you got to fight them sometimes. That's also true.
Mm-hmm. Damn, I need to find some downhill battles. Get a few points racked up. I know what you mean about how, like, prior to this experience, like, yes, you believed all the same shit that you believe now, but like having actually done it, like, it changes you a little bit. Like I unionized, or was part of an effort to unionize like a small arts nonprofit, which is like a very different beast, but it's the same thing. Or like going into it, it's like, oh man, I would love for this to be a union job, but not today. And then suddenly there's like a catalyst, and just everything comes together, and everybody like makes it happen. And after you've done it, it's like, shit, this has to happen everywhere.
And do you agree with me on the like it doesn't take like 100,000 people thinking exactly the same thing? Like, you can have just like a few people, and you can make a huge difference in that way. I mean, not to reference this last week's events either, but like, yeah, one person can be.
Yeah, no, totally. I mean, even if you just look at like the entirety of history, a lot of very crazy things started as a result of just a couple people.
Yeah.
Like 9/11.
I'm trying to think of some other examples.
What? Anything good?
Yeah, Bolsheviks, man.
Yeah. That's where I was going next, was revolution. But it is like that. Like, a couple people feel strongly about it, and then you just start having the conversations, and it's like, if those people who feel strongly about it are also the people who are like very competent at the job, and like always have like helped the other people like get by, and always like defended them against maybe unfair practices from management, that builds up a lot of goodwill, and then people are more willing to take that plunge with you.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Showing up for each other will always be worth it. And sticking up for the people who, like, even you don't personally get along with that well either.
Yep.
At work, like, that's a big deal. Like, when you're a steward and you decide to like get involved in that sort of thing, like I eventually did. Like, sometimes, like, yeah, there's kind of like the asshole that none of us really like is getting like disciplined by his manager, but management is like doing this stuff on purpose. Like, they'll pick. They'll pick you off one by one. They know that they don't have like a lot of support for, the one person or another, and you just gotta like keep in mind what you're there for.
Yeah, you gotta link arms. Don't let them get through the weak points.
Linked arms, not LinkedIn.
That's pretty good.
That's really good.
Oh yeah, and I wanted to plug anyone listening who lives in Iowa and like is inspired by Will's work to attempt to unionize your own workplace. I've mentioned this before. The Prairie Workers United zine that some friends of mine put together is very informative and really lays out the playing field in Iowa labor law and like what you'd be up against and how you can get started making that happen in your own workplace. Highly recommend it. It's short, it's succinct, and it's got pretty much everything you need to know. And I'll link to that in the episode description. So moving on, do you guys want to talk about child labor? This could be a labor-focused discussion here.
I've been trying to get a child laborers union started so we can keep kids in chimneys.
They need it, man. They need it more than anyone.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, this is sort of like an example of the kind of things that are possible when labor is weak. You know, like when there's not a strong organization, you know, helping people keep their working conditions fair and survivable. So this is a recent piece in the Des Moines Register by Kevin Baskins. Sanitation contractor for Sioux City pork plant fined for using child labor. You know, this could not be more 21st century Iowa if it tried. Child labor in the pork plant. Welcome to Kim Reynolds' America.
God.
I'll give you some of the details here. For the second time in less than a year, a sanitation contractor for Seaboard Triumph Foods, LLC, in Sioux City was found to employ children doing dangerous work at the pork processing plant. By the way, I've been told pork, among the acceptable meats, is the most similar to human flesh. That's what I've heard. So if there's any place to be employing child labor, dangerous child labor, without being necessarily noticed, I think pork processing might be it, right? Because you might not notice the difference when you're eating tenderloin. If there's
call that it's the same. Who tried both? Did the blind taste test?
It's a good question. I don't know where that wisdom comes from. I have not.
I've always heard.
I don't know. I don't know this, but it's what I've heard.
Like pig cadavers and experiments, because I guess their like body composition, like fat and muscle and whatnot, is like similar to a human. I wonder if that's...
Yeah, they're always stringing up pigs on Mythbusters.
Yeah, that's right. That's right.
That's all of my knowledge.
Seaboard Triumph Foods. Is this a company that anyone here is aware of? I was not.
Nope.
I don't know about them, but they are apparently one of the largest pork processors. I wouldn't be surprised if this is also a rebrand. Like they had to escape some negative press and change to Seaboard Triumph Foods.
A chill ran down my spine thinking that Slat changed its name. If it's if they rebranded, I'll be devastated.
It almost seems like an AI generated company name, Seaboard Triumph Foods, and they're in Iowa processing pork. Like, what the fuck is this? The U.S. District Court for the Northern District of Iowa approved a consent order and judgment November 27th with, speaking of AI-generated names, Quest, LLC. That's Qvest.
Qvest?
Qvest. Quest. Or like Quest with like an old English, like a sharp U, you know?
Yeah.
Return, that type thing. And they've been fined, Quest, that is, has been fined $171,919, which I don't have context for. I don't know if that's like a lot or a pittance for what they've done.
I'm going to guess a pittance, but that's just a guess.
Yeah. Yeah. And they've got to hire a third party to review and implement company policies to prevent the employment of children. You think, wouldn't it be great, you know, since this is a court order, rather than them hiring a third party, why don't we have like a government agency to actually like look into this and prevent this company from hiring children illegally? Don't we have that? or do companies exist for the sole purpose of being hired in these investigations to just look the other way? I'm going to guess yes. Here's part of this that I found very interesting. In an emailed statement, Seaboard Triumph Foods said that none of the U.S. Department of Labor filings included their company. So because this was like a contractor getting these fines, it's like, we're not responsible for any of this. We can pass the buck.
I think in the Gazette article about this, they were saying, like, our contract says you can't have kids in the factory. So if they had kids, that's them having kids. It's not us having kids.
Right, exactly, yeah. We wrote the rules, and the rules say you can't break the rules. So if the rules got broken, like, that's not on us. We wrote that down.
Yeah.
There's signs up that say no kids allowed. It's really the kids' fault. I mean, if you think about it.
Oh, this is all part of Kim Reynolds' master plan to not teach to undermine education in Iowa, such to the point that kids are so illiterate that they can't see the "No Kids Allowed" sign on the meat factories, then wander in and get jobs there.
Yeah, and I mean, kids these days, you can't tell how old they are. You know, I see kids walking around with mustaches. I don't know. It's a 40-year-old man, as far as I know.
There's the conflicting state law and federal law on this, right? Like, I remember this happened a little while ago, and there were like some restaurants in
there's a Subway
hiring
in was that Marshalltown?
No, it was Makokata.
It was Makokata. You're right. Yeah. There was a Subway, and there was a Sweet Peach something.
Yeah, we talked about
North
this
Liberty.
twice in the last 2 years, probably.
I think it was earlier this year. Yeah, but there is a. That has been a conflict between the state and the federal government, and the federal government was like, "Yeah, no, you can't, you can't just
stop hiring kids." And they're like, "But Kim said I could."
Right?
Like, but you can't.
Another part of the statement from Seaboard Triumph Foods that I thought was interesting: STF did not employ any of the alleged individuals and has no evidence that any underage individuals accessed the plant. But like. They did. Like, it seems like they're just lying. Because
they're just throwing this Caucus company under the bus that they hired. I assume that they probably like had to falsify some sort of documentation to get them in the door. So maybe that's what they're saying. You know, we had no idea. We have no evidence that any underage people ever walked through.
Yeah, it's saying they accessed the plant. Seems like, don't worry, like the integrity of our data, our mainframe was, remains intact after these 14-year-old spies tried to access our.
The children were a malevolent force trying to steal our pork processing intellectual property, but the data is secure. Don't worry. I know that's what all the employees at Seaboard Triumph, the insult comic dog pork processing plant were most concerned with, but the
you ever
individuals
let a kid play with your
access.
phone? Yeah, I mean, you don't want them messing around with your phone. Like, you got games on your phone. It's like, I got games in the pork factory. Like, get in there, big dog.
It's really fucked up too. They're working on the kill floor, which is really not a name of a place that you want children to be at.
Jeez.
Yeah, I mean, I'm kind of worried about any living being that's on the kill floor because, I assume it's what it sounds like.
Yeah.
They get killed, right?
Come up with a better name for kill floor, you guys.
Yeah. Yeah, they already have processing. Oh, yeah, it's a processing plant. Okay.
Yeah.
Sure.
It's kind of nice that
it's a mass murder factory. Let's be
something
honest.
isn't euphemized, you know?
Yeah.
That is true, yeah. A little
spark of honesty in the dark.
Yeah. There's only so much they can do. Or maybe kill floor is a euphemism, and it should say flesh rendering area.
Yeah, seriously. How much worse is it actually?
Department of Labor investigation determined that 11 children had been employed during the night shift and were using corrosive cleaners to clean head splitters. Speaking of flesh rendering, head splitters, jaw pullers, band saws, neck clippers, and other equipment within the facility.
Those are just names of bad guys in like old video games. Those are just a bunch of like Zelda enemies.
They got the whole T-ball team cleaning off the jaw pullers. Jesus Christ.
And they're on the night shift too. I mean, this is just like depraved.
Yeah, this is really evil, Justin. Thanks for bringing this.
Yeah, well,
you know,
there's so much positivity to the documentary and the success. Like you said, a rare labor W. We got to talk about the. I mean, this is the reality we're facing in the rest of the world. This
is what happens when the energy grid moves away from wood chimneys, burning wood to warm your houses, where you just can't keep the chimney sweeps employing children to go in there, because like that, while not the greatest time for an orphan, at least it's not the killing floor.
Right. Yeah, we need to. Well, I read something recently about like the consequences of industrialization. So maybe we got to like somehow revert those changes. How can we go back to a pre-industrial society?
This is degrowth in action.
Yeah,
where we get orphans back in the chimneys.
You guys know how to make explosives?
No.
No.
Okay. I'm formulating a plan, and I'm gonna go
say that.
I mentioned before that this is the second time that Seaboard Triumph Foods. I keep having to look at the screen to remember what this fucking thing is called. This is the second time. Okay, so earlier this year, they had been levied one of their other contractors was levied a $650,000 fine. And this was for Fayette Janitorial Services, who hired 24 children, some as young as 13, to clean dangerous equipment at Seaboard Triumph. So this is the second contractor in a year at this place, Seaboard Triumph, to be employing children to clean the head splitters and the jaw pullers. But the first time they canceled their contracts with that contractor, and that's why they hired Quest. So obviously there's no wrongdoing on the part of Seaboard Triumph Foods.
They had no idea. No idea at all.
Can I play devil's advocate really quick though? You ever try like telling a kid they can't do something? They're like, can I, for instance, clean the head splitter with corrosive chemicals? And you're like, no, we're done cleaning the corrosive head splitter with the chemicals. We're not doing that for the rest of the week. And they just keep coming back to it. So like maybe, you know, it's just easier to just let them have the corrosive chemicals and the head splitters rather than like have another argument that day, you know?
Yeah, I mean, strong-willed children are really the scourge of America. That's the real problem. I mean, they're probably watching TikToks about cleaning head splitters with corrosive cleaners. And
I mean, it's either that or Cocomelon. What do you guys think?
Does that happen on that? Is that a show, or is Cocomelon? Is that just like YouTube shorts? I don't really know.
You hear all sorts of things about kids' entertainment these days. I think that's one of the biggest, worst ones, right?
I'm kind of scared of that one.
It's kind of mainstream.
Like it's like too.
It looks
bright.
scary.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's one that you shouldn't. Whatever. Let me wade in on what parents should be doing with your kids really quick.
They were actually trying to meet Peppa Pig. That's why they.
Oh my god.
Oh man. Whew, that's some good shit. Well, okay, so yeah, I think I just wanted to give an example of the kind of stuff that's happening in places where there's a concerted effort by the state to undermine labor organization, and this is one of those consequences. Is a pork processing plant that hires a succession of contractors to smuggle in children to clean the pig torture machines in the dead of night. Which is
the night shift is really
this is like about as evil as you can come up with, right?
Sadistic.
This is Upton Sinclair shit happening in the year 2024.
Great note to end on. Also, I don't know if you saw this, but Joe Manchin and Kristen Sinema just voted down a Biden appointment to the NLRB.
I did see that.
And yeah, basically, I guess they're going to be punting for Trump to do whatever he wants with that, which is pretty ominous, but
that may have been, a small bright spot in our near future. But thank you to Joe Manchin and Christian Sinema for fucking that up for us.
Yeah, go watch Will's documentary. It's a lot more happy and will put you in a better mood.
Yeah. Honestly, that's probably a good chaser to this. We'll make a bit of a sandwich out of Will's documentary. We talk about it. We talk about something horrible. Then you actually watch the documentary, and then you come away feeling like, oh, there are things that I can do to make the world a better place. Here's a good example. But Will, thanks for joining us, and thank you for making this documentary. I'm glad that Means TV picked it up. I don't know what that process is like, trying to like sell them on a labor documentary.
I mean, of the places that are going to buy a labor documentary, Means TV is certainly the right partner for distribution, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's streaming on Means TV. I definitely didn't. I expected I was just going to put this out on my YouTube channel at some point, but I put a lot of work into it. I hope it comes across as it's like a real documentary that I filmed and edited and directed and all that stuff by myself. It's an honor to be on Iowa's only podcast here to talk about it.
Thank you, Will.
Thank you.
Now that you've said that, do you want to plug your own podcast?
Well, it's they're interstate podcasts, so I can't claim to be that. But if you like,
it doesn't break the
listening
rule. It's okay. I approve.
Thank you. Yeah, I got to check in with the RHC crew. Make sure that
everything gets run by me first.
If you like what I had to say about unions and you wondered what I have to say about the Lost TV show, I host a podcast with my friend Ben called Lost on Ice that you can watch on YouTube. I've got another podcast called The Hardly Working Show that's the Labor and Politics podcast.
Yeah, that one
I host with my friend Andy.
I didn't actually know about that one. Hardly Working.
That's a new one. That's a new one. We record when Andy has the time. He's a labor organizer with real bona fides. I'm just kind of tagging along with it, and so he's got the information, and I'm there. It's called Hardly Working Show. There's a million podcasts named that, so good luck. I'm not sure it was a good thing to call that for SEO, but yeah.
Yeah, well,
gotta go with the dick jokes. That's
well, it does have hard in the name, so that's one crossover.
You could try to rebrand
Hardly Working, and maybe make it work with an EWERK.
Ooh,
yeah, that implies something sexual, right? I think that's what that means.
I don't know. You tell us.
I don't know. Work with an E.
I'm in the dark here.
It seems more sensual than the O.
Yeah, it is though. And your production company is Brand New Extra Good, right?
Yeah. So yeah, I have another short film on YouTube. That Brand New Extra Good is the name of the channel there. Check me out. I'm active there too. I'm Mr. Content. You can't,
Yeah.
Always be recording. Always be releasing stuff.
Yeah, you have my respect. The constant production cycle is to be commended.
If I stop, I'll go crazy.
Yeah. Well, thanks for listening, everybody. If you like this podcast, you want more of our stuff that's not available for free, you can go to patreon.com/rockhardcaucus, and you will get access to, for example, 48 hours of podcasts about the works of Joseph Dobrian. But that's not the only thing that's up there. There's a lot of other stuff, too. It's only $1 a month. We would appreciate your support. And I'm going to close out with some music that is from Joseph Dobrian's New York City public access show, which was called Hard Fire. And this is the theme song to that.
I freaking forgot about Hard Fire. That's too good.
Enjoy the throwback,
oh, man.
Everybody. And we'll see you next time.
That was really good.